Also be pleased to know that rather than 3 presentations this evening, we're going to focus just on 2, Dr. Nurse and Professor Lucas, and we'll defer for short post-lunch tomorrow after Minister Harmon's speech, a conversation about what we have in mind for the Regional Diaspora Engagement Center. So please join me in thanking Dr. Nurse for coming, and I turn it over to him now.
Thank you very much, Iclo. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I'd like to thank University of Guyana for inviting me to participate. I'd particularly like to thank Jerry for the excellent organization of the conference. I do agree with someone who spoke earlier who said it was a landmark. I think we can really use this as a basis or platform for taking the issues of the diaspora and the development issues of the Caribbean to another level. I know it's been a long day. In fact, it's been a long 2 days. A lot has been said, and I really don't want to repeat a lot of what has been said. I'm just going to try in 5 slides, you will be happy to hear, and then I'll show you my 10-minute documentary or 10-minute version of my documentary on the Caribbean diaspora. And when the Honorable Representative from the UK, Mr. Lamy, was speaking, he said, I have 5 key points. I said, you know what, I'm going to make my presentation based on 5 key points. So that's what you're going to get. So the title of my presentation is the Diaspora Economy, Trade and Entrepreneurship in the Caribbean. And let me step to it right away. The first key point you need to know when you engage this process is know your diaspora. If you read any of the material by the International Organization for Migration, that's the first thing they talk about. But what do we need to know? We need to know who's our diaspora, where are they located, what are they doing. I've put up this map. It's a visual representation of the remittance flow to Guyana. You could use your remittance flow and the locations where they come from to determine where your diaspora is. If you're receiving remittances from a country, more than likely, you have some diaspora there. Okay? So, this in effect, so there are people in Australia sending remittances to Guyana. The bulk of it is coming from the United States, Canada, the UK, of course. But look at all the other European countries, and then all the countries in South America. So clearly, the Guyanese diaspora, and I have these maps for all the least developed countries in the world, and several other Caribbean countries. It's just that, shortage of time, I won't go through all of that. The next thing to do is map the contribution of the diaspora to our economies. Now, this diagram, which I did only half an hour ago, shows you remittance to GDP, diaspora savings to GDP, and diaspora tourism as a share of your total tourism flow. Guyana, by these measures, is the most impacted diaspora economy in the Caribbean. It trumps Haiti, it trumps Jamaica, and I have data for Trinidad just to illustrate how Trinidad is not such a country so impacted. So Barbados will be somewhere in the middle, Suriname would be just after Jamaica, Dominican Republic would be behind Jamaica, etc., etc., etc. But look at these figures for Guyana. Remittances to GDP is 9.3, but in several years it's been close to 15%. Really importantly, diaspora savings to GDP, 77%. It means that the earnings, and, well, I didn't put the income. The income of the Guyanese diaspora is several $billion. Of that is savings. And so savings relative to the GDP of Guyana is 77%. And then tourism, 70%. It was really interesting to hear the Minister of Tourism talk about Guyana's tourism and not mention that Guyana is, at least by my knowledge, in the top 5 countries in the world in terms of the impact of the diaspora on the tourism product. There aren't too many other countries that could claim that 70% of the tourist arrivals are from the diaspora. Suriname is one of them. The next thing you need to do or think about is how to strengthen diasporic entrepreneurship. There's something called a diasporic market, which many firms from the Caribbean and many Caribbean people who are immigrants abroad have been tapping into. I just have a short list of some of the companies, and these are some of the key sectors that they're operating in. Money transfers, agro-processing, tourism and travel, telecoms, creative industries, travel freight. So for example, you had a presentation by La Parcan this morning. I apologize for missing it, I wasn't feeling that well. But I interviewed La Parcan several years ago. And back then, La Parcan was the second largest employer in Guyana after the government of Guyana. I don't know if that still is the case. They own freight company, tourism-related airline, booking agency, remittance company, department store, and the list goes on. They are a diasporic firm in a diasporic economy. But then you have other people like Levi Roos from the UK, of Jamaican orientation. His sources are outselling Heinz in the UK. He's worth £64 million, according to his estimation, as of 2 years ago. And I can go through the list, but I won't. And then how do you tap into this diasporic market? Well, first of all, we have to conceptualize it as a market. I'm a trade specialist or trade policy specialist. And we talk about trade in 5 key areas in relation to the diaspora. One, which we talk a lot about, is the flow of financial resources and instruments. So things like remittances, diaspora bonds, diasporic savings, but also there are things like collateralizing or securitizing remittances. Countries all around the world are using their remittance flow to securitize debt, to securitize imports. And so remittances are not just impacting on households anymore, they're actually impacting on what central banks are doing, ministries of finance and so on. And then there's diasporic goods, niche products, etc. You heard the representative from the UK talking about, every time he arrives in Guyana, he has to have his pepper pot. Well, why isn't pepper pot sauce a major export? Targeting not just the Chinese diaspora, but the Caribbean diaspora and beyond. And then the diasporic services, huge. It includes tourism, which I already showed that is really big in the case of Guyana, but telecoms also is a very substantial area. Let me give you one example, and my colleague in Guyana, Mintukoi, is an expert in this area. Digicel has sold in Haiti, which is the poorest country in this hemisphere, in the year 2014-2015, $425 million worth of services in relation to telecoms. A large share of that was diasporic calls in and out of the country. Plus then you add mobile banking. So telecoms is huge. And then there's intellectual property. I don't think anybody has discussed that as yet, but tapping into our copyright and creative industries and utilizing geographical indications, patterns, etc. I'm going to move on now. It's been said in several of the panels, particularly those who are working or writing in the humanities, that you need to have some mechanism to identify with your diaspora. How do you build the linkages? It's not just about money. The diaspora is not some cow out there to be milked. And even if you want to refer to as a cow, the cow needs grass too.
Cow needs ganja.
No comment. The creative industries is critical in this regard, and I can take some responsibility here. I'm the chairman of a company called Caribbean Tales. We're the largest, we have the largest catalog of Caribbean films in the world. We run an incubator, and have been running an incubator for the last 8 years at the Toronto International Film Festival. And this year we got Flow, which is the largest provider of telecom services in the Caribbean, to be our key sponsor for the next 5 years. And as a result of that, they have produced a reality TV series, or funded a reality TV series, which is See Me on My TV. Caribbean people don't see themselves on their televisions. So how can we expect Caribbean people to imagine a future in which they are part of it? And so unless we invest in the creative industries and create a market for our young people to see themselves, we will fail in our ambitions. Which brings me to my documentary. So I will stop talking now and just say that I produced this documentary in 2011, 2012. It's been shown in, I can't remember how many countries, at least 25 to 30 countries. Several. Sorry? Is the Pope Catholic?
There you go.
If you want to see the longer version of the documentary, you have to purchase it from the company. Yeah. So the 10-minute version is free online. So more people have seen this documentary than have read all my collective works. So that's why I'm encouraging many of my colleagues to produce documentaries. But this is the first time that this documentary is being shown in Guyana. And Guyana is one of the 4 countries that are featured in it. It's Suriname, Guyana, Dominican Republic, and Jamaica. And what we do in the documentary is look at the relationship between each of these 4 countries and global cities. So we look at Suriname and Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and The Hague. We look at Jamaica and London. It could be Jamaica and every major city because there are Jamaicans everywhere. We look at Dominican Republic and New York. Well, that's where the bulk of the Dominican diaspora is, in New York. And not just in New York, in Nueva York, Washington Heights, what they call Quisqueya, and then the Guyanese and Toronto. Okay? So, without further ado, I will now try and click on to the documentary. Lights. Where's the text?
turn the volume.
And the Dominican Republic, all unique and somewhat exotic Caribbean countries visited by Guyana, Suriname, Jamaica, and the Dominican Republic, all
It's the internet connection. Here's the internet connection because it's streaming online.
El Salvador and countries in Honduras and others have used securitizations. They've also used transnational loans for the diaspora, as well as remittance-backed mortgages for the diaspora. So if you could address that, that would be a good way.
Okay, that's a really good comment and question. I have a diagram in one of my presentations of an iceberg where I show that remittances is just the tip of the iceberg. We have underestimated the value of the diaspora economy because we haven't created a methodology for capturing the value of it. So let me give Jamaica as an example. And I'm pointing to my colleague in Guyana, because she's Jamaican, and we've had this discussion many times in Jamaica, remittances accounts for about 15 to 18% of GDP. Then mortgages from the diaspora for properties in Jamaica is about 2 to 3%. So it's not including remittances. So we're up to about 20% right now of GDP. Diaspora tourism to Jamaica accounts for about 25-30% of total tourism inflows. Add another 2-3% to GDP. Then the Jamaican goods that are exported to the diaspora, from Jamaican party to Bami to you name it, yams. I would say give it another 2% because it's a significant share of the exports now. So for example, in the case of El Salvador, 10% of their exports to the United States are what they call niche or diaspora products. Telecoms, don't know what's the size of the telecoms. Guyana could give a perspective on that. I would add another 2% or 2%, maybe 3%. And then if you add the value of Jamaican exports of cultural and creative industries, targeting both the diasporic market and how the diasporic market has leveraged into other market spaces, you're adding another, whatever, 2% of GDP. Add all that up, and you're talking about 30% of GDP. Tourism by itself, and Jamaica is a major tourism producer and exporter, does not even come close to these figures. In Jamaica, they have 4 tourism agencies, employing about 2,000 people altogether. They have 1 minister dealing with diaspora, and he has a staff of 3. I'm giving this as an example because in the Caribbean, we are operating with what can be defined as a blind spot. We think that we have economies like standard economies. What we have are diasporic economies. The Guyana economy is a diasporic economy. You take the diaspora out, the economy falls flat on its face. And so we are still thinking of a national economy as a territorial concept. when we should be viewing it as a transnational concept. And the diasporic economy helps us to understand it in those terms. And so all the examples you just gave of securitization and so on, which are new financial instruments where you're leveraging your diasporic economy, are becoming more and more critical, especially in the context of Trumponomics and Brexit and whatever else. We have to have an alternative option. Our diaspora is that option. And when I say our diaspora, I mean our diasporic economy. I'm not talking about the bodies of people. I'm talking about what that body, set of bodies and people have generated as a market, as a space, an economic space. And in that regard, our thinking about the diaspora is far more limited than what the opportunities are. So there is an opportunities deficit in terms of our planning and our strategy as it relates to the diaspora. And I've done a paper on it for the Commonwealth Secretariat looking at Commonwealth's diasporas at the Commonwealth. So when you look at what Bangladesh is doing, or in Samoa and Tonga, there's a company in Samoa, or in Tonga, that owns a set of groceries in Tonga. And the Tongan diaspora can buy groceries to their family online. Yeah. Or in Suriname, Telesur, their telecoms operator, has issues phones with dual SIM, a SIM card with two numbers, a number for Suriname and a number for the Netherlands. So you can call, make a local call in both directions. They have 3%, no, 1.5% of the Dutch market, which may sound like a little share, but the largest operator has only 6% of the market. So this small company from a small country has 1/4 of the size of the market of the largest operator, telecoms operator in the Netherlands. Serious. And I can go on and on and on of several examples. Now, in this regard, diasporic entrepreneurs from the Caribbean have been thinking through these things faster than we are. We are way behind the curve as administrators and as researchers and as planners. We are playing catch up. What I think we also need to be doing is recrafting our role to be supporters of this process. And that's why I've entitled my presentation as looking at diasporic trade and entrepreneurship. It is already happening, and it's happening in a major way, far beyond even my expectations. I've been looking at this for the last 20 years, and it's moving faster than even I had ever predicted. And so, I think we really need to change our whole discourse around diaspora, because it's as though this is some external entity that we need to somehow be tapping into, when in fact it's already among us, already in us. Yeah. So I'm just trying to suggest that. I don't know any other quick questions or comments. I could talk ad nauseum about this. I know that you're thinking about some good guy in this room. This is a major export to the diaspora. Yeah. I mean, every time I go to JFK airport, I know where the plane lands from Haiti, because half the people coming off the plane have Babanco in their hands. Not so? But you don't notice that? I'm a rum connoisseur, so I don't notice that. Right? So, that's how dynamic the diasporic economy is. And maybe we could run the tape, Mr. DJ.
Keith, let me recommend that once the tape is run, we go to the second presentation, then we can take the collection.
Guyana, Suriname, Jamaica, and the Dominican Republic, all unique and somewhat exotic Caribbean countries visited by thousands of tourists every year. Many coming from destinations far and wide. A significant amount, however, come from the diaspora, living in global cities.
Well, every year I feel that part of what I can contribute to Guyana is that I could spend some of my tourist dollars in Guyana. And I think that it's like sort of saying, oh, I'm doing my good deed, I'm enjoying doing my good deed.
Who are these people, these diasporic tourists? And how do they contribute to the social and economic order of their home countries in the Caribbean?
In various ways. I mean, it may be by remittance. Would I go to Jamaica National and send some money, or send home to pay insurance or something of the sort, you know, or some sort of savings, because again, I do compulsory savings as well with a lot of banks and stuff home. So.
The impact of diasporic travel between global cities and their home countries may not fully be recognized because of a number of reasons.
People like to take Jamaican when they come in, rather than say, you know, I'm a visitor. Because they think of Jamaica as their home.
Our diaspora, or people in other countries, they're not accepting them as tourists. They're seeing them as friends and family, and they're saying, well, they're not really contributing to their country. But if you look at at some of the results of the research, they are contributing. Let's say on the average, one visitor spends, let's say, 1,000 to 1,500 euros per trip, and we have like 80,000 visitors coming into Suriname. You can easily multiply.
15% of our occupancy per year is based on the diaspora.
While the traditional visitor will come and spend money in the restaurants and retail shops, what the diasporan tourists we have seen, what they do is spend in the supermarkets, give to family and friends, and donations to alumni and community organizations. It's huge.
On a per capita basis, Caribbean countries are the highest recipients of remittances.
It's estimated that approximately $1 billion is remitted out of the UK and Europe into Jamaica every year.
In our case, remittance has become the take-home segment of income that is generated in the country.
I don't think most people understand how the Caribbean economy has expanded over time. And what we mean by that is that the Caribbean economy is not just the literal spaces, meaning the island territories and the mainland territories like Guyana, Belize, and Suriname, all packaged together. Caribbean economy has expanded beyond that to include global cities like New York, like Miami, Toronto, Amsterdam, London, Paris, and so on. Because a large share of our community lives there. And the linkages with our domestic or national economies is very, very strong.
Diasporic peoples may increasingly use the internet and new media in order to stay in touch with what's happening at home. However, nothing can replace the good old-fashioned phone call.
We're seeing a very large push by cable and wireless Caribbean, as well as Digicel, to infiltrate the diaspora market to sell their phone cards.
Suriname-owned Telisa is the largest mobile provider in Suriname and has been able to penetrate the Dutch market.
As a telecommunication company, we came with the SIM card with two numbers on it. One Dutch number and a Surinamese number. And the way it works is that Surinamese people living in the Netherlands can make calls within the Netherlands with a SIM card and to Suriname. But since there are two numbers on the card, the direction determines which number is being shown.
The diaspora is a key component of the home country's economy via travel and tourism, remittances, transfer of knowledge, and their contribution at the community level. In addition, there's a significant amount of trade between diasporic communities in global cities and their home countries.
After the visit to Suriname, people are sending a lot of goods. They bought there because the 25 kilos they get from the airlines is never enough.
The English speaking curriculum is geared towards the market. Where that family is going to play that market. Not one person moved. There's a whole group of them. Right? If you go into Jamaica, for example, there are 4 or 5 people that go to K1 Bar. It's like a celebration.
That's trade at the personal level. What about the commercial movement of goods?
The products that we focus on are fresh produce primarily. The yam, ever since Usain Bolt says the fastest man in the world because of yam. Yam in Jamaican yam, you can't get enough of it. The sweet potatoes, the ginger, all of these products are distinguishable from products you might get out of Africa and Asia. In addition to that, they're processed foods. The callaloo, the ackee, and the sauces, the jerk sauces in particular. All of these products are in high demand in the UK, not only among the diaspora, but your average British consumer.
Whilst the Caribbean economy has expanded to global cities, in some cases a feeling of nostalgia or a longing for cultural heritage draws members of the diaspora back to the Caribbean. Herein lies an opportunity for heritage and festival tourism. Caribbean countries are at differing levels of readiness to capitalise on this new diaspora economy.
There's a tendency to think that diaspora tourists will always come, that we don't have to market to them, that we don't have to entice them, that we don't have to plan for them. That is not true, because they operate in market spaces that are very competitive. But our advantage is that they have identity links to the region. Unless we begin to strategize about this target market, and target them in a more sophisticated kind of way, we may begin to lose this market share. This target market provides a crossover into other target markets through people's linkages, their colleagues, their friends, etc. They are able to bring other people into the Caribbean space so that they enjoy it, in fact, in a more authentic way, in a more meaningful way. And so, diaspora tourists are like our Trojan horses. They provide us with an in into various market spaces, which probably wouldn't be accessible to us otherwise.
I went away looking for another home.
And welcome to Guyana. We must all remember that we owe this nation a great debt of gratitude. For, like me, none of us could be where we are today without the existence of this nation. Yes, our reasons for leaving are varied, and some of us have less than pleasant memories of our homeland. Yet, the truth is, it was and still is our true home. And so, with these words, I once again say, welcome home. Let me also make something clear before I begin the essence of my presentation. And it is something that I think we underestimate. Guyanese are a proud people. We do not like to be in a sense of dependency. We have seen it over our history in the development of village economies after slavery, the development of businesses after indentureship, and today we see it in our own lives in the diaspora as we take jobs and pursue opportunities upon which we may otherwise frown. Yet, we must experience calls from our relatives and friends seeking some form of assistance. Let me say it is not easy for those who ask. They have not been as fortunate as we are to have traveled. And this sense of inferiority has no ethnic value to it. What really confronts us is the fact that for those who have been more fortunate than others, we must accept the existence of what we call the Liddell effect. To whom much is given, much is expected. I've been asked tonight to speak on the economic impact of the Diaspora Engagement Conference. And with my economics background, we can easily talk about things like the multiplier effect of our expenditures. That would be fairly easy to quantify, because I'm certain that we've all spent or would have spent a fair amount of monies between our arrival and our departure. However, I'd like to address this issue in a more long-term perspective. Instead, I'd like to focus on the ability of this conference to transform both the social and economic landscape of Guyana. Chukwu Mkezi Chikpe of the International Growth Center has framed the 5 C's of diaspora capital, in which he highlights financial, intellectual, political, cultural, and social capital. I will not delve into the third, political. The economic impact of the diaspora globally is well known, and as my colleague has just pointed out, contributes significantly to the development of economies globally. In fact, in Asia, studies have suggested that the diaspora alone accounts for 60% of foreign direct investment. But looking at Guyana, one of the main ways in which I think the Diaspora Engagement Conference can have an impact is to enhance the opportunities for us to participate in national development. To some extent, we currently do so through our remittances, which account for a sizable portion of economic activity. Unfortunately, much of that remittance goes towards recurrent expenditures. As a result, these remittances serve for daily sustenance, rather than a basis for establishing entrepreneurial investments. Through this conference, we can take a very different look at remittances. We can see remittances as having a significant impact on entrepreneurial initiatives. For I would argue that it's not just the quantity of the inflows that matters, but more so the quality. While we often look at remittances from the financial perspective, a critical and often overlooked aspect of remittances are skills and capabilities. There's a harsh reality that we must accept as Guyanese. That is, many of the skills and competencies needed to move this country forward do not exist locally. Hence, we must look to the diaspora to secure these competencies and capabilities. And this conference can serve as a means of doing so. Moreover, within the context of Guyana, the competencies and capabilities that this conference can bring to bear can assist in the revitalization of our village economies. These rural economies have been the source of great wealth over the years as we grew up. And today, for the most part, the economies are derelict and decayed. As we visit communities, many of us marvel at the state of affairs, wondering where did the coconut industry go to? Where did the fruit industry go to? Where did many of those industries go to that took us through schools and kept families together? This conference presents an opportunity for us to revitalize those businesses in very unique ways. Not to create them in the way they were, but to take them into the value-added component. It disturbs me as someone living in North America to walk into an upscale supermarket and see packages of plantain chips. We purchase them in their original flavor or in various flavors. And yet there is one thing missing from that package. A label saying, made in Guyana. Through this conference, we can begin the process of rebuilding these industries, helping them to create forms that are more of an international standard. This provides us with an opportunity to remind our village communities that they can learn to fish and not ask for a fish. We can sit down with individuals and community groups to determine what works best for them. How do we combine our skills and competencies with what they want to achieve? We have a great deal of expertise, and rather than use it to support demands for assistance, let us combine those efforts to support demands for investments. The values of this conference can also be seen in our investments in education. As we look at the performance of our students in Guyana, we can see that education is in crisis. Basic issues that we took for granted no longer exist. As one philosopher once remarked, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. It is important for us, through this conference, to reiterate both the value of education as well as our roles as educators. The value of education is lifelong. We are in the business of transforming lives. We do not look for instant gratification. An educator's job does not start at 8:30 in the morning and end at 3 in the afternoon. The truth is, education is a 24-hour job, the most unique profession one can ever encounter. And so we must find ways to ensure that the economic benefits of this conference are reflected in our investments and the investments we make in the education system, because those will yield results for decades. While staying within education, we speak about STEM, I suggest we expand the conversation to STEAM. Science, technology, agriculture, engineering, and math. We are at our foundation an agricultural-based economy, and that cannot be ignored. For this conference to continue having an impact, we must also have partners. One partner to which I refer is the government. Investments are attracted by favorable policies, those that provide clarity of purpose, accountability, good governance, and direction. Some of the hindrances for diaspora investments over the years have been a lack of regulations, existence in some instances of stringent regulations, inadequate laws and policies. Unfortunately, all of these exist in Guyana. While many of us are aware of the government's current efforts to address some of these problems, these efforts need to be accelerated. Governments must provide the tools needed to attract diaspora investments, ensuring that these are safeguarded and profits can be repatriated. Actions must be taken to remove barriers rather than create new ones. there must be developed a strong and vibrant diaspora investment policy, incorporating the work of multiple agencies. The recent decision by our government to establish a diaspora engagement office is to be applauded, but still, there is more work to be done. A word of caution. As we develop these policies, we must also ensure that the errors of the past are not repeated. There's a famous movie with the line, "Build it and they will come." We all know the title of the movie, Field of Dreams. If as a country we assume that creating opportunities for the diaspora engagement will generate favorable economic returns, then we are engaged in irrational exuberance. Merely asking the diaspora to undertake investment initiatives not only undervalues their potential contributions, but also belittles them into being seen as pockets of money to be explored rather than active contributors to a development process. For the diaspora to be actively involved in this process, there must be opportunities created for cultivating relationships. In fact, the presence of the diaspora here is testament to our willingness to participate in nation building and national development. Government must therefore take steps to know its diaspora. The diaspora is made up of individuals from multiple backgrounds, each with their own skills, networks, capabilities, and competencies. All of these can be brought to bear, as we have seen in such countries as India and Ghana. And in fact, we've just seen over 2 weeks ago a great diaspora conference being hosted in Ghana, where billboards were plastered all over the country. It could not be avoided. There's a diaspora unit within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that is tasked with not only engaging the diaspora, but providing them with investment opportunities, information on contracts, information on resources that are needed, all the things that they think they need in order to move forward. While the government has a particular role to play within the investment efforts, so also does the private sector. One aspect of the private sector I'd like to focus on is the banking industry. The banking industry needs to understand that it is a facilitator of diaspora investment. It is unacceptable for us to give checks to individuals, to deposit into accounts, see those checks being cleared in 3 days, and being told they will not be available for 6 weeks. It is unacceptable for individuals in the diaspora to give checks to individuals to deposit it into accounts. And when they are deposited, they are told it's possible this could be a case of money laundering. I do not know when we laundered $3,000. The private sector also has a role to play by helping to exploit what I call the informal trade networks, where manufacturing and other restrictions create problems for market entry. We can use the diaspora to create informal entry. As our research has shown, diaspora communities can facilitate market awareness. They can allow our products to enter countries where they will not be accepted otherwise. They can result in what we call informal trade networks to enrich domestic investment and the internationalization of our markets and products. As this conference demonstrates, the diaspora has multiple backgrounds. And it is important for us to understand that as we tap into this diaspora, it is not just the more fortunate we need to tap into. They're also the less fortunate with their networks. Networks can possibly be the greatest contributor for the diaspora to bring to economic development in Guyana. It is not just our remittances, it is also our contacts, both domestically and internationally. These can be used effectively to alleviate poverty. Guyana, while a nation, is not a power unto itself. It exists within a region. And so as we think of the diaspora, we must also think about the diaspora as part of CARICOM and the Diaspora Engagement Conference as part of a larger CARICOM initiative. Using this broad perspective, we in the diaspora can begin to ask some very important questions. How do the investments we choose to make fit into a hemispheric process? How do they fit in to a regional development policy? Do we have a competitive advantage in a regional market? Or are we simply recreating what already exists elsewhere? Are our investments building the basis for economic activity? Let me close by saying that the economic impact of this conference will not be reflected in the expenditures we've made. It will be reflected in the jobs we create, the businesses we help to start, the educational initiatives we fund, the communities we help to transform. For us and this conference to have an economic impact on this country, conditions must be created that allow for the diaspora to play a greater role in investment. It must be understood that our willingness to participate, though motivated by patriotism, should not be taken for granted. Our local partners must understand that trust is important, that we are patient, and we are willing to give them everything that they need. Accountability is vital. Let me say one final thing. We are all in this together. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see if there are a couple of questions or comments for both Leland and Keith. Colin?
I'm wondering whether if there's any engagement will be made with CARICOM, probably at the heads of government conference or some way in which the deliberations of this conference can be summed up and be delivered to them for them to understand what is the role of the diaspora. I think since it's such a major economic multiplier for the economies of the Caribbean, I think we need to engage them, educate them, and let's see how they will respond to that. Because one of the things which I'm thinking about immediately is that the gross domestic product of our countries may not take into account the diaspora contribution to it. And when we borrow in from like the IMF, etc., I think when they looked at the gross domestic product and included diaspora contributions, etc., it may be presenting a better terms of trade to them so that they can be much more generous in terms of looking at lending money, etc., to countries for development in the Caribbean.
Okay. What we'll do is, as we've done before, take a couple of questions, comments, and then ask the two panelists to respond as they see appropriate.
Good evening. I wanted to particularly thank both of these panelists for their insights into what the diasporic contribution or overall effect on the Caribbean is. I'm looking at it totally differently than I've in the past because of Dr. Nurse's comments and also all other panelists. There's a number of things that I want to, and because I'm leaving tomorrow, I just want to quickly say thank you for a very, very dynamic initiative that I believe will take legs and run in the years to come and bring so much more to countries like Guyana and the rest of the Caribbean. Dr. Griffith, I really do appreciate the opportunity that you have given us to really meet and mingle, get to know each other, get to know where the places and the people are that can bring things together in a way that we can all work towards a better Guyana, better hemisphere for all of Guyana and people that we serve. The one thing that really comes through sometimes is the fact that we're not totally inclusive, and I believe that there are methods, there are things that we can do to address those issues, because it's a matter of communication and a matter of bringing together the ideas and the people at the top that will send the message that we're in this together. The elements are outside. We have to come together and make it happen. So again, I just want to thank everyone that has taken the time to come out here and even to be here at this time of the evening to continue to participate and to help solve some of the most pressing problems of this country. Thanks again.
Thank you. We'll take one over there and maybe one or two final, then I'll ask Keith and Leland to comment.
Well, like several persons have mentioned, this was an extraordinary initiative. But what is clear is that members of the diaspora believe there should be some special considerations. We've heard that theme a couple of times, where in terms of the engagement of the diaspora, especially in investment, in preparations for engaging in business, while not being partisan is admired, I think the diaspora feels there's been coming through that there need to be some special consideration for that engagement. The other thing is, given that I am here to experience everything that I can experience since you've put together this fabulous initiative, maybe what ought to be considered in the future is the online, use more of the technology so others can tap into it. So even though they can't be physically present, they can still experience it. Because if we had probably discussed that, you know, these sessions are going to be available, then there will be a little bit more comfort in terms of how we can continue to engage. And maybe in the future, we can have modules for ongoing engagement, because that's what's needed to keep this initiative alive. And my third point is that as persons coming home to Guyana and getting involved in our community here, there is a dire need for special orientation. For someone who's been away for a long time, even though you're following through and following up, the snippets online don't do justice to what's happening on the ground. And it is a whole session of relearning. And my fourth and final point is, I know we're looking now at the ongoing engagement and the facilitation for the diaspora with Dr. Hunt's, I think, presentation. But there's another side to this, the personal side. And maybe that cannot be facilitated in this type of environment. It might be, you know, maybe a private venture. But the facilitation and services, remember you're coming back into an environment where you don't know what's going on. And the families and your own living arrangements and your, you know, the basic supports that you know you need to have. That entire space we haven't discussed yet. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see if there is one final comment, question, and then I'll ask in the order of Keith and Leland to offer their final thoughts. Since there are none, over to you, Keith.
Thank you very much, Agro. I think I'll address the question or comment that came from that side. I think it's absolutely critical that we engage with CARICOM on this issue. In fact, if I'm not wrong, yesterday they had a meeting, a strategic meeting about the role of CARICOM going forward. So I think this is an opportune moment for us to bring this up, and I would like to propose, if it's not too much further burden to put on the shoulder of IGLAW. I think we really need a champion for this. I've been talking about these diasporic issues for a fairly long time now in the region and outside of the region, and these issues are beginning to be taken up. But you need to have an institutional framework to drive this process. Leaving it up just to governments, I don't think is sufficient in their individual capacities. I think we need a regional social movement around the process. And in that regard, I think the University of Guyana has a critical role to play in that specific objective. The other point that was raised is in relation to how we can utilize some of these flows to enhance our position with the multilateral agencies and so on. What's interesting is that the multilateral agencies are the ones that are capturing the best data in this area than any other set of institutions. What they are not doing though, which is what I'm proposing, is that we move beyond looking at just the financial flows. There's nobody tracking diasporic tourism, the impact on telecom sectors, the impact on health areas, the opportunities in the intellectual property in relation to the diaspora, and I could go down the list. Nobody is doing this. And so unless we start to do it for ourselves, it's not going to happen. I went to the IDP 9-10 years ago, suggested them that we need to do research beyond remittances. They were not interested. They're still not interested, although they did fund one of the studies I did on diasporic entrepreneurship. But it's still, for them, tangential. When I am suggesting, and others are suggesting as well, as you can see in the presentations from India and Mexico, that this is a critical element of their economies. They see this as of huge strategic importance, even though in relative terms to their GDP, it's small. It's like 1/10 of the size of Guyana's impact. India, 2% of GDP, whereas in Guyana, it's 20+%. So we need to change that mindset in the region and in our governments before we get the multilaterals even excited about these possibilities. I won't say anything much more except that there's a range of incentives and facilities that we should be putting at the disposal of the diaspora, but it has to be strategic. So for example, one of the things that I've been proposing is the establishment of an incubator and an accelerator program for startup firms that want to target the diasporic market. These could be entrepreneurs living wherever, in the Caribbean or outside of the Caribbean. The objective is to go after the key markets that I identified in one of my slides. That is how we would begin to attract the investment. Because I think that just saying that we want investment, which is the point I think Leland is making, just hoping that if we make a call for investment that it will happen is a pipe dream. And Leland made the point really well. We have to create these mechanisms, find resources within our economies even, for some of that initial investment. And just to give you one last example, Caribbean Tales, which is now in its 8th, 9th year of operation and the largest provider of these film and audiovisual services now in the Caribbean, we got our startup funds in Barbados. The whole board was Trinidadians. Not one Barbadian on the board. And we got money from Barbados. Okay, so we have to think beyond this narrow concept of nation state and so on, which we've been so accustomed to. Thank you very much.
Okay. Been seen as those folks out there. Yeah, they come home, they send some money, they send a barrel, they do this, they do that. But I don't think we, as a region, have seriously looked at the diaspora and seen the value of the diaspora. And so part of what we are going to be tasked with is getting governments in the region to look at the diaspora very differently. See them as a source of wealth that has to be an active participant and not just somebody you rely on from time to time. Because the reality, as Keith has indicated, most of our competencies and capabilities are out there. And there are huge firms that are being developed out there simply to take advantage of these diaspora opportunities. So we certainly have to take advantage of that. Ms. Webster, going to your point about the need to do a few more things. Yes, the adjustment it's going to take time. We just can't assume that because we're back in here, things are going to work the way we want them to. We got to start getting accustomed to the fact that although we're accustomed to 9 o'clock being 9 o'clock, it's going to take some movement to get some of our local folk to understand that, as the Minister of Finance did yesterday. And so it's part of managing a whole change process, so to speak. Getting individuals to see things differently. And as we go through that process, I think we have to just engage governments and other entities in the conversation. Let them know that we're all part of this and we all have to do certain things in order to be successful.
Let me end on a note of thanking the panelists and thanking you with one comment as regards perhaps making more use of the technology. I had a conscious decision to limit the extent of live streaming. I wanted an interface in personal, real terms with folks at home and folks in the diaspora coming. Once you tell people it's online, the inclination is to not come, stay in the comfort of their place. And so we did live streaming of the opening ceremony. We're going to be doing live streaming of the investiture, but we wanted for this first conference, bring people physically together. Knowing that there will be things in the second conference or the third conference we'll do with more technology interface. But it was a decision of mine, let's do this in a way that enables people to have the appreciation of each other in live terms. We're going to talk a little bit tomorrow about the Diaspora Engagement Center, and I'll respond to some of the propositions that I heard here. This is a wonderfully long day, productive. Thank you, and see some of you tomorrow morning.